nerves because she would try everything. She was like a, she had a lot of nerve to do whatever she wanted to do, and she was small. She was she was about as tall as Irene, but she was only weigh about 120 pounds. And when she died, she probably wouldn't weigh 90 pounds. She lost her. She had two bouts with cancer. First one was lymphoma. The second was her stomach. She had stomach cancer, and she when they treated her, she had to go to Wilmington because they didn't have anything down here on the shore to treat her with. And she had a sister in Wilmington, and she lived. She went up there and she spent all week up there, and would go get treatments every day for this cancer of her stomach. And I forget how many treatments she went up there for about 4 weeks or five, maybe it could be 5 or 6 weeks. She would go up there on, might say on a Sunday and come back on Saturday. And she would have Sunday, she would be home on a Sunday. And and once they got it treated, this cancer, once they got it treated, then she didn't have to go back. But until later, when they did another X-ray and to see if they got it all, and once they thought they had it all, she didn't have to go back. But they told her said. Now, say we've got it treated to where we think we've got all of the cancer. There's no more cancers. It's just your stomach, but your stomach is so small now because they had to do a lot. They had to get a lot of it, and so it was only about half the size of a normal stomach. So you'll have to eat small portions and eat more often. And she used to say, "I don't have any appetite. I don't get hungry. But I know I got to eat to live," so she kept on. She always kept on eating about small portions, and she'd eat several times a day, 3 or 4 times a day or something.
What would you say her personality was?
Well, she was a type that she wanted to work, so she worked all the time. Whether if it wasn't in the field, it was in the kitchen. See, we had a big garden. She would take care of the garden, and of course she had some help too. We always had some black women or men that worked in the garden. But she would go out and pick beans. Seemed like every day in the summertime she'd go out and pick beans. She'd come in and she'd get somebody else to help her shell them. But she'd have a pot of bean soup for lunch every day. Seemed like.
And she didn't want Jimmy to marry me for nothing in this world. And finally, after we married, I did all of her gardening for her. I did all of her dishes. I did all of the pantry work. She couldn't get over it. She had never experienced anything like that.
Another hard worker.
See, I was a farm girl, and I knew everything, but she didn't know that.
Right.
Well, see, but she did farm work.
She changed her mind about me
She
very
did
soon.
farm work when she was growing up. That her father had a dairy farm, but they also had tomatoes, and I'm sure she picked tomatoes. Of course, I never saw her picking tomatoes. I see her pick tomatoes here on our farm, but I've never. I didn't know. I don't know what she did when she was a kid, but I guess she and the children. I guess see, she had 4 sisters, I believe, and 3 brothers. Let's see, was let's see, Aunt Helen was the oldest, and then it was Aunt Mary. And mother, let's see, who was that? I was thinking she had, but maybe it was only 3 sisters. Aunt Mildred, Aunt Helen, Aunt Mildred, Aunt Mary, and mother. I guess that's 4, isn't it? 4 boys. Four girls, 3 boys. Uncle Ed and Uncle Walton was the oldest, Uncle Ed and Uncle William. Uncle William was the youngest boy. He was younger than Mother. Mother was the youngest girl. But she would tell stories about what they would do when their parents went away. And they had a well. And I don't know if you've seen pictures of old wells. And they had they would brick up. They would brick up a well, and it would be different sizes. But a lot of the wells would be about this size inside, with the bricks all the way around. And they would go down deep enough to where they hit water. And there would be water in the bottom of the well, and they try to go down 3 or 4 feet deeper than where the water was. So they'd have this thing on the top with a crank on it, and they'd have a rope that went down the well and a bucket on the end of the rope. There was a bucket with a bail on it that you hold on to. But you put that bucket down and then lower the bucket down and lower it down low enough to where they would weight that thing enough to where the bucket would go down so that to get water in it. And then you crank the bucket until it come up to the top. And when it got to the top, you pour the water out of the bucket into your container, and then you'd lower it down to get as many buckets as you wanted. You see, whether you wanted 1 bucket or 2 buckets or a dozen buckets, they'd have a barrel on a thing, and you'd fill up this barrel with maybe 10 buckets of water, so that you had water to bathe in and do other things. You know, cooking, water for cooking or water for your bath. Then, of course, they always had a pump in the kitchen or close to the kitchen. A lot of time it was on the back porch. That's what we had over there on that. And that's what they had here in this thing. They had a pump in the kitchen that you pump water out of the ground. But I remember she was telling one time when her parents went away, and the older kids, they got the idea that they'd take turns, and they would lower this bucket. They would lower this bucket down in the well, and they put the little ones in the bucket, and they lower them down in the well, and then they ride and bring them back up, and take them out, and they'd give somebody else a ride. And good land, when the parents found out about it, I guess it's hard to tell. They probably all got a spanking because they said, suppose a bucket something happened and the rope broke or something happened to the bucket and you went in the water, and what would you do then? You know. So I don't know how deep the water would have been in the well. It might have been over their head, the water in the well, depending on how deep. See, the water table would change when you got a big rain. The water table would go up. It would go deeper in the well. See, when we had this pump down here, when we weren't pumping water, it was only about 4 or 5 feet down in the well before the water. We pumped out of what we to start with down there. They dug a deep hole down there to start with when they first put this well in, and then they bored a hole, and it went down to about 110 feet, I think it was, down 110